Hudson. Gregory. Henderson.
Here.
Nurrenbern.
Here.
Schroer. Weber.
Quorum being established, we're going to move into hearing bills. We're going to go We're going to go in order, but we're going to go a little bit after after Senator Nurrenbern. We're going to do Senator Weber. So, Senator Nurrenbern, if you want to begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Maggie Nurrenbern, serving the great people of the 17th District in Clay County. And thank you for this opportunity to present Senate Bill 177. This bill requires charter schools to obtain a certificate of need issued by the State Board of Education in order to be eligible to operate. This is simply a process improvement bill to protect our taxpayer dollars. We should be sure there is a need in the community that can be backed up with quantitative research before opening new schools to receive Missouri taxpayer dollars. How do we know if a new charter school is a wise decision? How do we know if sufficient demand exists for the new building? How do we protect against unnecessary duplication of services, facilities, and inefficient use of taxpayer resources? Under Missouri's charter school model, we don't. No control exists. No study, no quantitative information is required to determine whether millions of state and local taxpayer dollars are invested in a new school. As a former educator who spent 5 years teaching at one of our top performing charter schools in our state, I know some charter schools fill very specific needs in communities. I want to be very clear. This is not a bill to ban new charter schools from opening, but simply a tool to ensure the community needs a new school before investing millions of dollars into a new one. More than a third of Missouri charter schools have closed over the past 2 decades. Over $620 million taxpayer dollars have been spent on these failed charter schools. If safeguards like these contained in Senate Bill 177 had been in place, it is likely some of those failed schools would never have opened. This is my first year carrying this piece of legislation, and I want the committee to know that I'm very open to suggestions and changes on the certificate of need requirements or other aspects of this bill. Thank you, and with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
All right. Any questions for the bill sponsor? Just briefly, no, I definitely see the concern with charter schools and having an influx of them and the potential for failure and failing students. But I guess, what's your thoughts with, in the broader spectrum, even just regular school districts that continue to fail for decades? I guess, do you think that
one of the things that, and if I can speak to Kansas City directly,
yeah.
Just because that's the situation I'm most familiar with, there was a time when we saw, quite frankly, a mass exodus from the urban core of Kansas City. And so because of many factors, from white flight to declining population, we really saw a decline in Kansas City public schools, but only after the very severe decline happened once we had the opening of charter schools. So one of the things that I think that, and I'll be honest, that charter schools expanded most under President Obama. That was really the impetus, and many folks, many Democrats looked at charter schools as being more or less the silver bullet to help with education reform. I mean, that is the fact, and I am a person who was studying education. I was really interested in that charter school model. I saw some awesome things happening within our charter schools. So as I was continuing through my graduate work, I would visit these schools. I did different graduate studies on these schools, and I was very impressed with some of the things that I was seeing. And I think because of that more or less competition model, that parents are going to seek out a school that is going to be better fit their family's needs and quite frankly push their students to achieve at even higher levels. So I am somebody who saw that, and I can say as somebody who taught in one of our top performing charter schools, I was very impressed with a lot of what I saw. However, I also saw how they were able to attain those scores, more or less, if you will, right? It was because the students who had disabilities, the students who suffered from dyslexia, quite frankly, weren't able to keep up with the pace of the curriculum, and they were forced to go back to the traditional public school. At the same time that the charters were continuing to open in, I can say in the 1 mile radius, during my time there, I saw many charter schools open and close within a year or two. And it was so oversaturated that it became very difficult for schools to stay open, just because it's simply not feasible to operate at a school at 25% capacity. But as I say, there's no model, there's no tool in place right now that requires that need to actually exist to open a new school. So a lot of people with very, very good intentions, noble intentions, open schools without a plan to get students in there and make sure that they're able to fill those schools with qualified teachers, et cetera. So I understand, right now we're really looking at I think some very important measures through legislation to make sure that we are actually working to help students achieve at higher levels, and that's what I want to make sure that we're able to do. What doesn't help students achieve at higher levels is having them go to a school for a year or two and then have that family forced to search for a new one when that charter closes. And unfortunately, I know families who have been in 3 or 4 or 5 different charters within a span of a few years, and that's not good for students either.
Yeah, I agree with that. Senator, proceed.
I think this is pretty important that you bring it at this time, because we're looking at a bill, some open enrollment bills, and they're going to probably have some of the same situations with some of these schools that are going to transpire as kids move some in with the charter. And I think we're going to have to get a handle on this, because we try to be stewards of tax dollars. And I kind of wanted to add, I guess my question is, I think what you're looking at is, you're saying with these buildings and starting them up, there's a huge cost. And the same thing as we start moving kids from in the public schools. And we're probably going to have to watch that if we're going to be good conservative stewards of our money here in the state.
Yeah, and that's, I can say certainly during my time in the legislature, I've become somebody who's become much more fiscally conservative, especially as we're looking at schools. One of the things that we all recognize is that there is a tremendous administrative burden. And Senator, as you've mentioned in one of your hearings, a lot of that burden, quite frankly, has been placed by the legislature on those schools. So as schools are required to do more and more, which I am all about increasing literacy. I think that should and continue to be one of our #1 priorities, is making sure that every kid that graduates from a Missouri school knows how to read and knows how to read well, right? I am all about all of these additional measures. However, at the same time, a lot of times that does require more administration. I think it's good that a school has a school nurse and a social worker and a cafeteria and a gymnasium and a playground to be able to play. However, that doesn't always exist in our charter schools, because they are, and I think a lot of us have toured charter schools as part of our freshman tour or during other duties, but you'll recognize that some of them are in renovated office buildings downtown, and quite frankly, you don't have those type of spaces that I think, quite frankly, are the most important spaces for students to have, to learn to run and play and be a kid, right? And we don't see that always happening in our charters. So the other factor that we see with a lot of our charters right now is that because they aren't able to bond, and that's a whole nother conversation, they really struggle to keep up with facilities and maintenance and capital improvements. And the legislature has made some attempts in recent years to do that through the appropriations process, is give them some money to be able to dip in to make those improvements. But as we have aging buildings across the state, that's another factor that we have to consider. And so, as I mentioned in my opening comments, we have spent over $600 million on charter schools that have eventually gone under. And so I think we really need to be strategic. This is not a bill to push charter schools away. Charter schools exist in our boundaries of KCPS and SLPS today. And I think we want to make sure that the charters that are there doing well continue to do well. This isn't anything that is attempting to do that. But as we look forward to moving any push to open new charter schools, I think we really have to have a mechanism in place that makes sure that it's going to be a good fit and be able to stay open to serve those families.
Well, when you were talking about bonded and indebtedness, I think I talked to somebody who was on a school board just the other day, and they were looking at doing a lease purchase agreement. And I went, you need to be really careful. That's out of Fund 1. which
Yeah.
is where you pay your teachers and you do your operating. And I think the bond and indebtedness is going to get to be, because we have a lot of aging buildings around the state, and I think it's going to become a bigger thing in the future. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Senator.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you for your presentation. Anyone to testify in support? Can I see a show of hands who's here to testify on this bill? Okay, we've got quite a few. So, first in support, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Chris Ropey here on behalf of the Kansas City Public School District. I first want to start with, this is a good bill for students and being able to provide them in the long term with the resources needed to get them prepared to be educated and to go out into the world and get jobs and all those things of what we try to do to have those students ready for that. We know firsthand in Kansas City what charters have, what that landscape looks like. I'm happy to share with you the most recent, it's a few years old now, a landscape study of what that does for the resources available for students. We have a really good relationship with our charter schools, and I know this bill only deals with new charter schools going forward, so we're not, anti-charter school or the existing charter schools. We're currently working with them in support of a bond that will be on the ballot in April because there are a ton of needs in the community. It's been forever since Kansas City School District and folks in that community have passed some new resources, and buildings and roofs and everything needs a lot of work there. Just a few pieces of information to share with you in what that landscape looks like. We currently have 20 charter schools in the Kansas City Public School system. There are way more seats open than we have for students. The numbers, from best we can tell, there are about 4,000 open seats in the charter schools that are there. So they're going to have the same amount of overhead for the most part, regardless of how many students are there. So there's probably a better way going forward to make sure that makes sense and that we do keep those resources in the classroom. Choice and options for parents is not a bad thing, but you just have the facility costs, like I said, the transportation costs that go into it. You look at a similar size school district like Springfield, Missouri, what Kansas City, just the public school district, the traditional public school district, not the other 20 LEAs that are there. We spend 2 times the amount of money on transportation because you have transportation providers going down the same street to get a different kid at different houses depending on what that looks like. The amount of facilities that are spent in Kansas City School District and the traditional public schools versus a district like Springfield, those are just a lot of dollars that are not getting spent in the classroom that really are so important for students to prepare them. Having a process like what is in the Senator's bill makes a ton of sense going forward. You have a lot of charter schools that have closed over the years. We've had a lot of Kansas City Public School District traditional schools that have closed over the years as well for a whole host of reasons. And at the end of the day, that's bad for our families and our students. And a bill like this going forward is something that could be extremely important to make sure that we're able to have the tools to do what we need to do for our students and our families in the district. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Hey there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Steve Carroll, registered lobbyist here on behalf of the St. Louis Public School District. Just like to start by saying that choice for the mere sake of choice, I don't necessarily believe is good public policy, but choice, if it's a good choice moving forward, which I think this bill is trying to accomplish, then it's hard to argue with that. On behalf of the St. Louis Public Schools, we currently have 62 buildings. The charter schools have 39 buildings in the city of St. Louis, serving approximately 27,000 children. That's about 267 kids per building, which most of the buildings are operating at about 50% level. We've just got too many school buildings for the number of children that we have. And when you look at it, you're spending the money on overhead, infrastructure, administrative costs, and that money is not going into the classroom. I know that there are going to be 2 charter schools closing next year in the city of St. Louis. There's also the city, the school district is looking at in 2026 of closing quite a few of our school buildings, just simply because of the numbers aren't there. Although we realize that when you close a school in a neighborhood, it really damages, basically destroys that neighborhood with the school there. But it's a necessary, something we have to do, and we think this, while this bill isn't perfect, it's a step in the right direction. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any question? Oh, proceed.
So you're averaging 267 kids per building?
That's what you're basically averaging.
Yes. Wow. I'm just, because
I
I know
mean-
what roofs, HVAC,
Yeah.
you know, doors, outside doors, and keeping them secure, there's just a lot of money involved
That's
with
just
that.
unsustainable. And I mean, you know, we should have dealt with this back in 1999 when Senate Bill 781 was there, somehow putting some guardrails on. We didn't. We never have. And I think this bill could be a step in the right direction.
It's
while
just
not
my
being
concern,
perfect.
that's a lot of money out the door that could be used for teaching reading and math, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward. And don't be bashful or shy if you're...
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. We also like to speak in favor of Senate Bill 177. The previous witness alluded to Senate Bill 781. You got to remember, in 1998, the charter school concept was a relatively new thing. When we were drafting that bill, nobody anticipated, and even if you look at the other states, nobody had seen the kind of consequences we have now seen. The Kansas City School District documented, I think, back as early as 2018. They did an outstanding job of documenting the difference in terms of what's actually being spent on kids in terms of activities and instruction. Conceptually, I think the state could picture it like this. You have these kinds of guardrails in place for your four-year institutions. The state controls, how many colleges do we have, where are they, what does House Bill 3 look like? Imagine if Illinois and Kansas could dictate or decide that you would have additional campuses. You'd still be funding them through House Bill 3, but you'd have additional campuses that somebody else had decided. It kind of is going to be feeling like that to any school district where they know what the resources are, they know how many kids they've got, but somebody else is able to make decisions about how many buildings they have in that system, and they expand that system and make it less efficient. So we think this is a step in the right direction, and we're glad to be in support, happy to answer questions.
So are you saying you're the drafter of the original bill?
This is one of the sins of my misspent youth.
No. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none,
Thank you,
very
Mr. Chairman.
much. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brant Shields on behalf of the Missouri School Boards Association. I want to go on record in support of Senate Bill 177. Again, we think that this is a good, as my colleague at the NEA just said, a step in the right direction on protecting the state from inefficiencies and protecting the precious tax dollar we have to make sure it's being spent in the most effective way. This adds, again, that extra level of accountability when talking about whether or not we should open a charter school. I think it's important to understand, something that Mr. Ropey mentioned is that there's Springfield and Kansas City as a population, as far as number of students in the district, are about the same. But there's incredible differences between a district and the efficiencies they have where they have charter schools and where they do not. And so, for example, the total revenue per pupil in Springfield is $14,000 versus Casey is $21,000 with a state and local burden. The cost for the operation of a physical plant in Springfield is $33 million versus $67 million in Kansas City. Operations and administrative overhead is $3,318 more per pupil in Kansas City than Springfield. And then due to inefficient building size, Kansas City has 450 more teachers and 88 more building admin than Springfield in the midst of a teacher shortage. And that's because, again, we've created these inefficiencies. Every time you set up a charter school, you are, in effect, setting up an entirely brand new school district. That includes the administrators that are required by federal law, your superintendents, your transportation directors, your nutrition directors, all these things. It just creates a whole lot of top-heavy administrative overhead. And that's why I think for a lot of reasons we've seen in charter schools in Missouri since we opened charter schools, and while the senator said over a third, it's actually 45% of charter schools have closed in Missouri since we started doing charter schools. And just that inefficiency creates a lot of chaos for the students of Missouri. And again, we think that having a more responsible, accountable way of looking at how we are going to open charter schools, we think is just a good step in the right direction.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for
very much.
testimony. Next witness to testify in favor. Welcome, state your name and proceed when ready.
Good morning, Senators. My name is Suzette Waters. I am the board president of the Board of Education of Columbia Public Schools. So I am here as a volunteer, not as I don't get paid to do this, but this is something I'm passionate about. Columbia Public Schools is one of the districts in Boone County, which was included in Senate Bill 727 as a county that allows charter expansion, and that is something that we disagreed with at the time and we are still advocating against. This bill would be a step in the right direction to protect our local tax dollars from duplicate infrastructure, which has been mentioned already before, and I appreciate Senator Henderson's desire to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. That's one of our calls as board members too. So we kind of feel like if we're going to spend tax dollars, we should know that there's a need there, similar to we wouldn't do a highway expansion without doing a traffic study. We need to know that if we're going to be building other schools in our area, there is a need there. So unfortunately, Boone County voters were not afforded the opportunity to weigh in on this decision and dictate how our local, not just the state dollars, but our local tax dollars would be spent. We're confident that if it came to a vote, voters would support our traditional public district because they have done that over 14 consecutive bond issues and 4 levies since the 90s. Our most recent bond issue passed in 2022 with a 75.7% approval. So what about academics? Columbia Public Schools in 2024 got an annual performance report score of 86.5. That puts us in the top 20% of school districts in Missouri. And comparing that score with the scores of charter schools in Kansas City, that puts us higher than 18 out of 20 in Kansas City and higher than 13 out of 16 in St. Louis. Interestingly, 9 out of 16 charter schools in St. Louis have scores on the most recent APR that, were they required to be accredited by DESE, would be either provisionally accredited or unaccredited. So the point I'm trying to make is that the work we are doing as a traditional public school district is functional, it is sufficient, it is exemplary, and we don't feel, we would like some guardrails put up so that if a charter school wants to come in, either our community needs to show support of that or a need needs to be demonstrated. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning. I'm David Lee Brush with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership, and we are in support of this bill because we believe in local control and we believe in neighborhood schools, and this is a step towards the right direction. One of the things that I'd like to add to what other speakers have said is that when a charter school closes, that puts an additional burden sometimes onto the local schools because they have done staffing needs and facility needs and all kinds of other needs based on their census. And when the charter school closes, they come back to that neighborhood school that may be now understaffed and not have the resources that they need in that local neighborhood school. we are still in favor of public money for public schools, but if we're going to spend public money in charter and private and parochial schools, we would like guardrails like this one in place. Thank you.
Well, you testified for local control, but this isn't local control. What I'm seeing, this is a State Board of Education dictating.
Well, correct, yes, it's a step towards, I mean, what the previous speaker said is that the voters we could move that into the voters. But yeah, a certificate of need is a step in the right direction, is what we believe.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else testify in support? Going once? Anybody? All right. Okay, we'll move into opposition. If you're opposed to the bill, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form if you're going to testify for or against.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Maury Scott, and I'm here to represent mothers, grandmothers, children, charter schools, and Missouri Charter School Association. In life, change is inevitable. Everything about our existence requires change at some point. As we are blessed to continue our journeys, we will be faced with decisions requiring us to change. Our purpose today is to discuss Senate Bill 177, which is requiring a certificate of need upon opening future charter schools affecting the great state of Missouri. Upon reviewing said bill, we find that what is being requested is already effectively in play. There is no state law requiring said certificate due to the fact that it's already incorporated as part of the charter school's opening process of checks and balances. No school in the charter system is allowed without meeting the criteria. The originators are vetted, their intentions reviewed, backgrounds are researched, curriculums proposed are closely scrutinized, neighborhoods in which they choose to exist are canvassed, community meetings are hosted to ensure that said school will be a welcome addition. No stone is left unturned when it comes to hiring staff and administration. The finances and the financiers are reviewed, researched, put under a proverbial microscope to ascertain whether or not their intentions are pure and honorable. All these things and more are done to ensure that those requesting close proximity to this world's most precious cargo, which is our children, will be safe, that they will in fact receive the education they seek to become positive, productive members of society. Know that it is them who will one day become our nation's leaders. Charter schools are fueled by choice, each different and unique to the students they serve. We as human beings have never and will never come in a one-size-fits-all category. Neither should our schools. In conclusion, we are requesting that this particular bill be withdrawn. It's not personal, not at all, but it is mandatory for the continued growth and development of our state's educational system. I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in opposition?
Good morning. My name is Noah Devine. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Charter Public School Association. We represent 37 charters in the state of Missouri, about 80 schools, about 26,000 kids here in the state of Missouri. Appreciate the Senator's introduction of this bill and truly appreciate the interest in being good stewards of tax dollars, as well as what I know are her personal beliefs that all kids can achieve and that Missouri has a great opportunity and a great public education system. We certainly agree. With respect to this bill, though, however, a couple of comments have been made that I think we need to address. One is, this is not a good bill for students. That comment was previously made, And the standard as a good bill for students should be, and I believe is in the state of Missouri, what our families want. And what we know in Missouri is that no student or no family attends a charter school that is not, there's no force to do so. It is a choice. And so if families are making that choice, that is good for families. Now, will a charter school maybe look differently than, say, a traditional district school? Sure. And do I want and do I support all public schools, traditional district, charter, magnet? I could keep going. Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's a good for a family and it's a good decision for them and it's going to serve them well, that's a very good thing. Second, when we think about a certificate of need, a recent poll came out from St. Louis University just in February, which showed that 55% of Missourians support public charter schools and less than 2 in 10 are opposed. In no corner of the state, St. Louis, Kansas City, Northwest Missouri, Northeast Missouri, Southwest Missouri, or Southeast Missouri, is the support below 50%, and in fact the opposition is usually below 2/10 or 3/10. Missourians know how to make a choice and they know what fits their needs, and that's a good thing. For many Missourians, a traditional district school is a great option, and we support that. For many Missourians, a charter public school that is going to tailor to their needs is also a great option. Last, I want to make the point, the idea of the certificate of need is a concept kind of borrowed from the medical profession regarding where you cite hospitals. You take a look at beds, capacity of communities, all those sort of things, and start to figure out where it makes sense to have hospitals or considerations around those sort of things. Unfortunately, I would argue in the state of Missouri, our educational system is often in the ER. And the question being asked is, well, which hospital do you need to go to? And what I would say is, we need a doctor. Our state is an awesome state. We have a great opportunity educationally. Our families just want a choice that's going to meet their needs. And I think if we start from that place, that is the community need, and that is the certificate of need. Because no family is attending charter school that doesn't choose to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Oh, proceed, Senator.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So, question for you. You were talking about the popularity of charter schools in the poll, and that it's above 50% in every corner in the state. So I guess my question is, so the community that you and I grew up in was not allowed to vote on this last year. In fact, it was rejected. So I'm curious why, if you're so confident that it's above 50% in the community that you and I grew up in,
yeah,
why would we not let our community vote on that?
Thanks, Senator Weber. It's a good question. I would say a couple things back to you. I'll get to the vote question. Number one is, I think you and I both know in Columbia, I should have said, I grew up in Columbia. I went to Columbia Public Schools. Senator Weber and I have known each other for a long time, and I really appreciate his dedication to public education, and I sincerely mean that. We happen to disagree on this issue, but what I would say is in Columbia, I think we've seen that Columbians figure out where they want their kids to go to school. I think it's the Kale School is a new independent school. There's Columbia Independent, Father Tolton. I could keep on going. In many new Columbia Public District schools, right? And
there's a lot of choices.
Yeah, and those are, and Columbians know how to navigate that. And so what I would say is, I think we know there is interest in a family finding a good option for their kid. I think now to your question about a state law, this governing body, the Missouri House, Legislature, and obviously then the governor's office, pass laws all the time around the state, St. Louis, Kansas City, different areas. This is no different. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, there won't be a charter school in Columbia if families don't want to go there, period. Because they won't be able to start, they won't be able to demonstrate a need, and they won't have the population or the enrollment to go there. So charter schools only happen where there's truly a need.
So that doesn't answer the question about if your confidence over 50%, why would you not support a vote?
Why would I not support a vote in a local community?
Yeah.
I would be willing to have the discussion. At the end of the day, though, if a vote goes, I'm making this up, 49 or something like that, does that mean that of the, 110,000, so 55,000 families in Columbia don't get a choice? That seems kind of crazy.
Okay, but that's a different argument. That you were trying to establish that they're popular, but just I want it to be clear.
No.
That way you're asserting that they're popular. You're actively resisting people voting in whether communities.
Oh no! I certainly believe in people voting. I also believe that people vote for the senators here yourselves to represent them, and they made the decision last session. So I actually think the vote is already there.
Okay.
right, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify in opposition? Please come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sit down. Good morning. My name is Felicia Gardner. This is my daughter, Valencia Borge, and we are here today to strongly oppose Senate Bill 177. My daughter attends Kip Vickery Academy, and I have seen firsthand in the incredible impact this school has on students, families, and the community. Kip Vickery Academies provide my daughter with high-quality education and the support she needs to succeed. The special education teachers do an outstanding job working with her, ensuring she receives the resources and the attention necessary to thrive. The school nurse is always helpful.
My nurse about me
Care about me and do my hair.
care about me and do my hair.
The school nurse is always helpful. And as a mother who just had a baby, I truly appreciate the administrators and the staff who go above and beyond to support my family. One of the many reasons Kip Vickery Academies is so valuable to our neighborhood is its commitment to meeting student individual needs. The school helped get my daughter bus stop change to make transportation safer and more convenient. They offer numerous programs that benefit students, including Hopewell, which provide academic support for struggling learners as well as behavior support, meeting, and training to help students develop extensive life skills. Because of Kip Vickery Academy, my daughter is reading at grade level in the Cedar Inn School. The dedicated staff work together to ensure that every student has the opportunity to succeed, and they created a positive, nurturing environment for all students. This school is a vital part of our community, helping children grow academically, socially, and emotionally. Senate Bill 177 create unnecessary barriers for new charter schools that can make a real difference in the lives of students and families like KIPP. I urge you to oppose this bill and continue to support schools that are providing quality education and life-changing opportunities for children.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. Great job.
Thank you.
Any questions? See none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Please come forward. You've got quite the crew with you today. All right. Anyone? Oh, okay. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Janice Billingsley. And this is my daughter, Riley Thomas, and my daughter, Toye Dyson. I oppose this bill. I like charter school. I stay in the Normandy School District, and my daughter goes to the leadership school. And the reason I prefer the leadership school is it's a small school. It has small classrooms, and it taught my 5-year-old. She know how to read and do math. So I really like it. Why you like the leadership school?
I like it because it has small classrooms.
Come here, daughter. Why you like the leadership class? What you like about it? Come on. Do you like the lunchroom? Say it.
I like my school because the lunchroom.
That's how I like it.
Do you like the recess too? Is the recess fun? Good. All right. Well, thank you very much. Any questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony. Great job, girls. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Please come forward.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am I'm here today to share why additional barriers to charter school operations would be devastating for families like mine. My daughter Kennedy's educational journey demonstrates why schools like Atlas Charter School are critical and why we cannot place unnecessary obstacles in their path. When Kennedy first entered school, she was quiet, isolated child struggling with significant challenges. Living with epilepsy and managing ADHD, her speech delay made traditional classroom learning nearly impossible. Our previous public school system was not very supportive to her unique needs, leaving her feeling unsupported. Atlas Charter Schools changed everything. They didn't just accommodate Kennedy through her 504 plan, they re-imaged what educational support could look like. They provided extra time on tests, created environments that encouraged her participation, and saw her potential beyond her challenges. Where other schools saw limitations, Atlas saw opportunity. The transformation has been remarkable. The child who once sat silently in the corner is now everyone's friend. Her confidence has blossomed. She's no longer defined by her challenges, but celebrated by her strengths, requiring a certificate of need who will put this type of transformation education at risk. Innovative schools like Atlas fill critical gaps in our education system. They serve students who don't fit in traditional models, students who need personalized attention, flexible learning environments, and educators willing to think differently. By creating additional hurdles, we risk not opening doors for children who need alternative educational plans. I urge you to consider human impact behind these regulations. Forever Kennedy, there are countless children who depend on charter schools to realize their full potential. Read this. Speak out.
I love Atlas because my teachers make me feel comfortable and care about my education, and we have good lunches.
Thank you for your consideration.
Great job. Can we get your name for the record? I'm sorry.
Courtney Wheeler.
Courtney Wheeler. All right. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Any questions? See none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is James Schulz. I'm a senior fellow at the Show Me Institute. I'll be testifying, submitting written testimony for my colleague, Susan Pendergrass, who couldn't be here. But after seeing what I've seen this morning, I'm going to depart slightly from the written testimony because I need to say clearly that this bill is an anti-competition, anti-choice, anti-free market, anti-school choice bill. That is flat out what it is. Take a look at the people who walked forward against this bill. Those are the very people that will be required to submit documentation for a new school to open. For the past 2 decades, school districts in Missouri have had the opportunity to support charter schools. How many of them have? 0. Not a single public school district has supported charter schools in this state, and they could have. Why haven't they? Because they are opposed to choice and competition, because they will lose students. You heard from the St. Louis Public School District that their buildings are underutilized. Why is that? Well, for a period of time, they had an explicit policy where they refused to sell buildings to charter schools. They refused to give them over. Now, that policy has softened in recent years, but that is part of the reason that they have the problem they have with underutilization. The reason we have charter schools or school choice in general is because choice and competition is good. We've had 28 studies that have looked at the competitive effects of school choice, private school choice programs in particular, and they find when schools face competition, 26 of the 28 show that the public schools get better. Choice and competition allows for schools to innovate and to improve. I want to ask you too, like when we look at the certificate of need, what it says that you have to state you're going to improve integration or you're going to improve academics, We don't see anything there about providing new opportunities. How many public school districts in this state offer a Montessori school? How many offer a classical school? How many offer an art-specific school? Very, very few, and almost none that don't already face some form of competition. What choice does is it allows these different types of educational models to flourish. This bill would put in place a system to basically snuff out the future development of charter schools, because it puts the power in the hands of the districts to certify whether they need any competition. And let me tell you, they're going to tell you they don't. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning. Kate Costas, registered lobbyist with KIPP St. Louis, here to testify against Senate Bill 177. KIPP St. Louis is a charter school network in the city of St. Louis. You heard a KIPP family earlier testify against the bill. I want to say we don't have any plans to expand or grow, but we're also not interested in closing the door behind us. We know competition makes us better. We know that our families having options makes us better, and we are interested in seeing thriving school choice options for all families in Missouri.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Okay, seeing none. For informational purposes only. Okay, seeing none. Senator, do you have closing remarks?
I just want to thank the committee for the time this morning. I appreciate all the conversations, and I look forward to continuing those conversations here in the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That'll conclude the hearing on 177. We'll move to Senator Weber's 627. You may begin when you're ready, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Weber, 19th Senate District, Boone County, here to present Senate Bill 627. This is truly a simple bill. Back in 1862, the federal government passed the Morrill Act, which was the creation of land-grant universities, basically setting aside federal land for states that they could sell. They could take that money and they could invest it in a university specifically to focus on teaching, research, and agriculture. The University of Missouri became a land-grant institution in 1870. The money that was generated from selling that federal land was placed in a fund. It's at the state treasurer's office. The University of Missouri currently directs the state treasurer how to operate that fund, when to sell, when to take make investments, when to take revenue and put it back into the university. All this bill does is take that fund from the state treasurer's office and have the university directly operate that fund rather than operating it through the state treasurer's office. So it's actually just a government efficiency, if you will, bill. And I have a witness from the university that can provide some technical expertise if the committee is interested.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the explanation. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Anyone to testify in support, please come forward.
Just have one witness, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Anderson with the University of Missouri. And so, like Senator Weber said, this seminary fund was established in the 1800s, really, from the proceeds of the sale of the land grant, and it is governed by existing organizational statutes and state constitution. What we're hoping to do is simplify what is, a relatively unique endowment to simplify the process. And so right now there's a lot of back and forth between the university and the state treasurer's office. The treasurer's office holds the investment, but they invest in our direction. So we're choosing the government bonds they're investing in, and then we're requesting reports from them so that we can then pull the income back and then distribute that to the endowment. All this bill will do is move the custody from the state treasurer's office to the University of Missouri, and then the University of Missouri will continue to do what we already do. We'll invest the bonds, and then we'll move the interest that comes off or the income that comes off the bonds to the distribution account. And then we'll continue to provide reporting back to the treasurer's office, which would be in line with the Constitution.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you.
Great.
Anyone else to testify in support? Okay, see none. Anyone to testify in opposition? See none. Informational purposes only. All right, see none. Senator, closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you. That'll conclude the hearing for 627. We're going to move to Senator Brown's Senate Bill 364. Please come forward, Senator. Begin when you're ready.
For the record, I am Senator Ben Brown of the 26th District, and I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 364. Last year, we passed Senate Bill 727, which contained a provision that created incentives for schools to maintain a 5-day school week. This provision rewarded schools that maintain a school year of at least 169 school days with additional funding. Unfortunately, rather than rewarding these schools, in practice, it's actually placed a hardship on many of them. This issue was brought to my attention by the superintendent of my child's school district, the School District of Washington. She explained that even though the district has always scheduled 170 school days, more than what was required under that bill, and they have never considered moving to a 4-day school week, they are at risk of losing this funding due to the fact that the bill did not account for the possibility of cancellations due to inclement weather. This bill offers a simple fix. It changes the requirement of 169 school days to 169 calendar days. This would allow schools that adhere to the 5-day school week requirement to still call off school in the event of extreme weather events without being penalized. The law as written creates a number of risks. It would create hesitancy regarding decisions on when to call off school when there are potentially hazardous road conditions, or force them to extend the school year even further, which would create conflicts with current contractual obligations between the school and those it employs. The prospect of which also happens to be very unpopular with my 8-year-old at home. I believe the goal of this bill was to reward schools who maintain their current 5-day school week system. This change would allow them to maintain that system while also ensuring that they aren't punished for unexpected inclement weather events that are beyond their control. I will just also add this bill has already passed the House Education Committee with a vote of 17-1, and from my understanding, the one that voted against has now come around. So it's been moving through the House with very robust and bipartisan support. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions? Oh, proceed.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this, because really what was happening too in a lot of these schools was they were sending work home for some of these days to try to count these days with the computer-based programs. And I'm sorry, I don't think that's the same thing as what they get when they're in the classroom. And I think this is a great answer. They're actually going to get a better education. I think they still have to do 1,044 hours, don't they?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing head shake behind you, so I know they do. So we're really not letting them out of time, just that physical day, and I think they're getting a better education. Thank you.
Proceed.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is one of the most important fixes to 727. I heard, I am a parent that experienced the pain right after winter break and having my kids go straight to AMI days and 5 days in a row. I remember maybe the first, second, third day I started thinking, what were these politicians thinking when they passed this, much to the it has been something else, and depending on the area of the state, 10, 12, now we have schools that have been impacted by the tornadoes. I mean, it's been a really rough year, and so I think I appreciate you bringing this fix forward. When I started talking with some of my area folks about what we needed to do, they went ahead and pointed me and said, actually, Senator Brown already has the fix, and that's what we need to pass. So I hope we get this fixed as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for those comments. And actually, I met with the House sponsor earlier. He made a few changes that I actually would like to add into a committee sub before it's voted out. And he, instead of limiting it to inclement weather due to the recent outbreak of tornadoes and the effects that caused, broaden it to include situations like that as well. Schools aren't penalized because obviously, if you have the intention, you're a good actor in seeking to maintain the 5-day school week. Things like that are outside of your control, I think it's wrong that you should be penalized for that.
I agree. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Anyone to testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair. Brant Shields, on behalf of the Missouri School Board Association, greatly appreciate the Senator for bringing this bill forward as a fix to an unintended consequence of Senate Bill 727 last year. Just last week we had 27 school districts impacted by the severe storms, and they're still recovering from that and figuring out what that's going to look like. And I think this helps provide that flexibility to help at least try to make right when the unknown comes forth. So I just want to thank the Senator again and hope that the committee will support the bill.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else testify in support, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Kimball on behalf of the Missouri Association of School Administrators. I don't know how many times I've been asked by my members to support this bill and get this thing across the finish line. This is a big deal for them. So we would appreciate your support. Happy to entertain any questions.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else testify in support?
A little more timely this time, Mr. Chairman. Autophagy on behalf of Missouri NEA. We also support Senate Bill 364. I'll just point out House Bill 607 has passed the House and has this provision in the form, I believe, that the sponsor was speaking to. We appreciate his bringing this forward and the committee hearing the bill. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions? See none. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else in support? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Harris on behalf of the Missouri State Teachers Association go on record in support of this of Senate Bill 364. It's a common sense fix to an unintended consequence of Senate Bill 727 from last year. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Okay. Testify in opposition. Okay, see none. Informational purposes only. See none. All right, Senator, closing remarks.
I'd just like to thank the committee for the opportunity to bring forward, as was alluded to earlier, common sense reform fix that we can make that I think would make a big difference.
Perfect. Thank you, Senator. That wraps up the hearing for Senate Bill 364. We're going to move to Senate Bill 594. Senator Berger, please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Jamie Berger, Senate District representing Scott, Cape Girardeau, Perry, Bollinger, Iron, Madison, and Reynolds County. This is very simple. Beginning January 21st, 2026, this act requires each school district's school board and charter schools governing board to display the 10 Commandments in every building and classroom under their jurisdiction. This display shall be such and such, but basically, school boards and governing boards may use their funds or accept donations to purchase the displays, although they shall not be required to spend money for this purpose. I honestly believe that when prayer went out of schools and religion was removed from schools, that guns came in and violence came in. This is a bill that I feel very passionate about, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Oh, thank you for bringing the bill forward. I fully support. Any questions? Senator, proceed.
Good morning, Senator.
Yes, ma'am.
How are
Yes,
you doing?
Senator. Not ma'am.
How are you doing this morning?
Good, good.
We're doing our best to
Yeah, exactly.
correct our ways from the House and the ladies and gentlemen and all
Exactly.
of that. But thanks for being here this morning. Just a few questions for you. You know, we obviously we've seen a tidal wave of these bills more or less across red states, and right now we have the case, the Louisiana case, for example, is still playing out in the court. So my question to you is why rush this? We know that the Supreme Court ultimately is going to weigh in on this. Why go ahead and try to push this forward when that's yet to be litigated?
I think it's something that we need. I think Missourians want it. You know, when I talk to people at home in the district that I represent, you know, a lot of people are strongly against it, but I think, I don't think it would be any cost to the schools whatsoever. I think there's enough people in every district, every school district that would pay for the signage. I think it's something that we need to push for, and when the Supreme Court rules, we'll see what happens.
And I say that, Senator, as you know, just during our 5 years now in the legislature, we have seen so many cases play out in courts at the cost, quite frankly, to Missouri taxpayers. Millions have been spent on these suits. And this is one of those things where I know if we were to pass this, again, millions of dollars would be placed in these suits. And so this is one where I do believe the Supreme Court ultimately is going to rule and decide one way or another. But I want to get into the text of your bill just a little bit.
Sure.
I am curious as to how you decided which version of the Ten Commandments to place into this legislation.
I don't know that I really decided that. I think any version of the Ten Commandments would be fine as far as I'm concerned. I think anything going in the right direction to create a positiveness in our school is a plus.
So who chose this version then? Is that a version of the Ten Commandments that you chose, or is that did a organization bring it forward to you? I'm just curious. And Senator, here's why I ask you this. I know, you know, I remember being a young girl going to Bible school with a friend who was Baptist, and I was Catholic, and I brought my Bible, and they brought their Bible, and our Bibles didn't read the same. So as they're following along, I remember piping up like, wait a second, that's not what mine says. And I was just curious because of the different versions of the Bible.
I just did it through House research, Senate research.
Senate research, and,
Yes.
and they chose this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't do it to preference one
Skew
version
it one way or the other.
Now, we're placing this in, or the bill would legislate that this is placed inside of a classroom, anywhere in the classroom. Did I miss that?
You know, and I would be open to amending that, you know, because at times I think, you know, maybe that would, I wouldn't say it would be a little bit too much, but maybe we need to display it in the opening lobby of the schools initially to start with, to see kind of where it takes us from there. You know, where the gathering spots would be, you know, but I'm open to amendments, however that would be.
Okay, so I was thinking there was one part, the nature of such display shall be determined by the school board and the governing board, and then it states the size, et cetera, and how those would be purchased is also, they may spend school tax dollars on this, or donations could be made.
I don't think they'd have to spend $1 on it.
Okay. I thought there was one part that it stated that it had to be a central focus. Now I'm not finding that word.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was thinking that I had read on part of it, one of the requirements is that it had to be a central focus. And now I'm not, that's escaping me. I think I took a look at this before break. It's on page 2.
Are you talking about the display shall be at least 11
Yes,
inches?
and it says then, yeah, and the text of the Ten Commandments shall be the central focus of the poster, et cetera. So you are saying that this is it. You know, you're going to have something that essentially, and my point being that this is going to be something that essentially for the purpose of your attention to be directed towards it, is what I'm saying.
Right.
As you know, if you've been in a lot of schools, there's a lot of things on the
Oh, exactly.
walls, but we're saying that this is a frame that you need to look at just this. And Senator, over break, even up till yesterday, I visited my last school. I was in I had 5 different school visits. And I can tell you, if you come and see the schools where I spent my spring break, I am really proud to represent one of the most diverse regions of the state. One of the schools that I was in, we have speakers of over 100 different languages. It's an amazing thing to be around so many different nationalities, ethnicities, and I've learned so much from those students. And I ask this because one of the things that I think we value, I certainly have found so much pride in my family's history, is the very nature of the freedom of religion and the freedom of exercise. And I even go back to, our founding fathers and recognizing this. Some of our, I am a history buff, I think, as many people who sit on this committee are. And I think it's really interesting, even Ben Franklin, for example, he has a paper where he really states in it how important it is to be a thorough deist, and in that we're going to base and build our government based on reason and on observation. And we can look at Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and James Madison and James Monroe, and I hear so many times that we'll say, well, we have to do this because this is the founding of our nation. And part of our founding of our nation was escaping the monarchy. It was escaping that pressure to be of one way, and it was about the freedom. And this goes against the very founding of our nation. That's what I really believe, Senator. That this is not a freedom.
I don't think it does at all.
It's a pressure to say these are the commandments that you have to subscribe to. And while I think in almost any religion that you look at, we do see more or less the love your neighbor as yourself, pretty much inscribed in every religion out there and in their religious texts in one way or another. I think going through and really placing these in a public school classroom is a very frustrating use of our time and what I will see as being our tax dollars moving forward as we litigate these things.
I don't think there would have to be any tax dollars spent whatsoever.
Well, and I understand that you're saying, I imagine churches would step forward and want to donate
They
that
would.
and all of that.
And parents.
But I know as we look at other states, and as you know, Missouri's no stranger to litigation, I know that if we were to pass something like this, lots and lots of money would be spent in these lawsuits. And
I think that's with every bill, though, that we pass, Senator. There's always going to be litigation prospects out there to people to challenge anything that we do.
okay, well, I know if this gets any further, we'll have a lot more conversation about it. I know that you probably weren't surprised at all to see my opposition to a bill like this, and I appreciate us always being able to have that conversation. But again, I always think it's important just to recognize, and we are an incredibly diverse state, and to get around and visit other people's districts, I think is one of the most worthwhile experiences that I've had as a legislator, and recognizing an area in a rural school in the Boot Hill looks very different than my neighborhood school, and that's a good thing, and we should embrace those differences.
We should respect that,
At the
exactly.
same time, recognizing that passing legislation that's a mandate on all of our schools, I find very problematic. So thank you, Senator, for the conversation this morning.
One thing I think that when they talk about separation of church and state, I think they were talking about we don't want a church ran by the state. That's my feelings. That's my interpretation.
Yeah, and we'll we had there's the Treaty of Tripoli. So John Adams wrote this, and literally explicitly stating that the U.S. was not founded on Christianity. And so I think that's interesting. So take a look at that. I had some light reading over spring break, so take a look at that one. Thank you, Senator.
Well, actually, that's funny that you bring up that treaty, because they actually rescinded that because they attempted to utilize the Treaty of Tripoli as a way to appease Muslims, because they had taken prisoners of Americans, and they figured out that trying to appease did not work. So they actually rescinded that very sentiment, the writers of that. So, Senator, I know this is going to be one of those things that's a robust discussion, but first off, what's our national motto? Do you know what our national motto is?
In God we trust?
Okay, in God we trust. Have you read the Mayflower Compact?
No, I have not.
So the Mayflower Compact, I mean, the actual directive in that was to go and basically proclaim the gospel to all nations and to the Americas, was the intent and the founding and the principle of the American form of government. And the Mayflower Compact was, basically kind of that building block to give us the nation that we have today. Then you go to just looking at the historical impacts that faith has had and Christianity, more specifically. And we've not seen any more freedom and liberty proclaimed across this entire world, but it was by America and it was by Christianity and by the fact that America was founded as a Christian nation. And if you go and actually read the majority opinion of Holy Trinity versus United States, where this question came into play, I mean, it's a massive, I guess, compounding of all the things that made America a Christian nation. And unfortunately, our court system has not upheld our freedom of religion. They are honestly continue to erode.
Has moved us away from
and
it.
they continue to actually erode our founding, who we are as a nation. And here we are having to pass legislation that just states that this is who we are as a nation. We're a nation that upholds everyone to have that capability to practice their religion as they see fit, but to toss off our founding, who we are as a nation, who we are and were as a people, I think is a travesty to think that this is even a discussion. And I bring up this building. If you look at our Senate, I mean, we're all senators. If you look at the entrance to the Senate, it's to serve, not to be served. People need to realize that that's from Christ himself, in stating in what was it, Mark 10:45. Go to the first floor rotunda. You see righteousness exalts a nation. You see when people have no vision, the people perish. I mean, these are all scripture. It's actual scripture from the Bible that's enshrined in stone in this building. We have the Ten Commandments outside of this building. The first floor rotunda, as you look up, it's a portrayal of the gates of heaven. Go out and look at it, everybody here. Mm-hmm. Go out and that was the portrayal. So this thought process that we are now a nation void of faith, void of God and his direction is just erroneous at every single level. And there's always this wanton desire to say that we're a secular nation. Our Supreme Court, if we want to go to case law, has ruled on several occasions that secular humanism, secularism, atheism is non-deistic religion itself. So those that say that we need to be free and burdened from religion are also just ascribing to a non-deistic religion to be the tenet of this nation. So I just think that's wrong, and I think we just need to be willing to plant that flag that God and the God of the Ten Commandments is who gave us this amazing nation, and we need to be able to reflect and look at that.
I agree.
So I appreciate this bill, and I hate the fact that we even have to have this bill. Any questions? All right. Anyone to testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Keith Heuser. I am actually here representing Matt Krause, who is of counsel for First Liberty Institute. And with some latitude from the committee chair, I would like to provide my own testimony at the end as well, if I might. Okay. So first of all, written testimony from Mr. Krause. Chairman Bratton, Vice Chair Hudson, and esteemed members of the Senate Education Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to submit written testimonies in support of Senate Bill 594. This bill would ensure a copy of the Ten Commandments is posted in every classroom in the Missouri public school system. The posting of the Decalogue in schools has generated much debate the last few years, so on behalf of First Liberty Institute, I wanted to explain our constitutional analysis in regards to Senate Bill 594. By way of introduction, First Liberty Institute is the largest legal organization in the nation dedicated exclusively to defending religious liberty for all Americans. In short, we posit that under the new U.S. Supreme Court precedents, such as Kennedy v. Bremerton School District 597, the U.S. Supreme Court will likely find that 10 commandments posted in schools are constitutional. As a side note, the Kennedy in the Kennedy case mentioned above was our client, Coach Joe Kennedy. We were honored to advocate for his constitutional rights all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we were thrilled to have those rights vindicated in the above referenced opinion from the highest court in the land. Over the past 50 years, the U.S. Supreme Court has issued conflicting rulings regarding government displays of the Ten Commandments. Since 1971, the court has often evaluated the constitutionality of public religious displays under Lemon v. Kurtzman, and I'm not going to do the citations because I don't know how to read them. I'm not an attorney, so I'll let you guys read this at the end. In Lemon, the U.S. Supreme Court misinterpreted the Establishment Clause to find that any government action that did not have a wholly secular purpose, that advanced religion in any way, or that even hinted at government entangled with or endorsement of religion was unconstitutional. The convoluted three-part Lemon test has led to unpredictable legal outcomes, especially in Ten Commandments cases. In 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a 6-foot multi-ton granite Ten Commandments monument located on the grounds of the Texas state capitol. In this case, the court ignored the Lemon test, arguing that it was not useful in dealing with passive displays like the Texas monument. However, on the same day, the court ruled that a paper display of the Ten Commandments in a Kentucky courthouse was unconstitutional under Lemon. McCreary County versus ACLU, the divergent outcome of these two cases can be attributed to Justice Breyer, who appeared to seek a middle ground by casting one vote in favor of Ten Commandments displays and one vote against them on the same day. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court relied solely on Lemon to issue a narrow 5-4 opinion prohibiting Kentucky schools from displaying the Ten Commandments. The opinion, Stone v. Graham, listed no author and was a mere 2 pages long. After 5 decades of flawed Establishment Clause rulings under Lemon, a major change occurred in the legal landscape through the U.S. Supreme Court's decisions in American Legion v. American Humanist Association and Kennedy v. Bremerton School District 597. As another side note, the American Legion was also a First Liberty Institute client. In American Legion, the Supreme Court held that a 100-year-old veterans memorial shaped like a cross and displayed on government land was constitutional. The court stated that Lemon's 3-part framework for Establishment Clause cases was unwieldy and unhelpful, having been harshly criticized by members of this court, lamented by lower court judges, and questioned by a diverse roster of scholars. As a result, the court had repeatedly either expressly declined to apply the Lemon test or has simply ignored it. In American Legion, the court overruled Lemon in the context of longstanding documents, symbols, and practices, opting to measure the constitutionality of such items by assessing their consistency with America's history and tradition, and that will become very important. In Kennedy, high school football coach Joe Kennedy was fired for kneeling and offering a brief, silent prayer after football games. After years of legal battles, the U.S. Supreme Court not only upheld Coach Kennedy's constitutional right to pray, but overturned the long-standing Lemon test in its entirety. In Kennedy, the court held that courts must measure the constitutionality of government activity under the Establishment Clause through a history and tradition test. Under American Legion and Kennedy, federal courts must now look to historical practices and understandings, not Lemon, when assessing the constitutionality of public religious displays, including Ten Commandments posters in educational settings. From the Stone decision in 1980 until June 2024, no state required the Ten Commandments to be displayed in schools. In that June month, Louisiana enacted House Bill 71 to require the display of Ten Commandments posters in elementary, secondary, and post-secondary schools. That policy is currently in litigation in federal court. We have every confidence the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, of which the state of Louisiana is part of, will uphold the Louisiana law. Since Stone v. Graham was decided under Lemon, and since Lemon was overturned, Stone v. Graham is no longer a valid test of the constitutionality of Ten Commandments posters in educational settings. And I hope that goes to the question of lawsuits. The lawsuits would be based on Lemon test, and there is no Lemon any longer. The constitutionality of Ten Commandments posters in educational settings is not yet settled law. Courts in varied jurisdictions may come to different conclusions on this issue, but the United States has a rich history of presenting the Ten Commandments in educational settings. More documentation on this point can be provided if desired, and I would have to get that for you. For this reason, the U.S. Supreme Court, employing a history and tradition test, has a clear pathway to find that Ten Commandments posters in schools are constitutional. Recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions, such as Kennedy and American Legion, have shifted the legal framework for assessing public religious displays. Under a history and tradition test, the U.S. Supreme Court will likely find the Ten Commandments posters in educational settings are constitutional. Thank you again to this committee for the opportunity to submit this testimony. First Liberty Institute is ready and willing to answer any other questions the committee might have regarding the constitutionality of Senate Bill 594. First Liberty Institute applauds Senator Berger for bringing this bill forward. We look forward to its passage and implementation in this great state. And it is signed, God bless, Matt Krause of Council. Questions on First Liberty Institute's testimony? And I'm happy to leave this written if you have a place you want me to.
I'd say finish your testimony, and then we can answer or ask on both.
Okay.
Yep.
This won't be as long and hopefully a little more entertaining. Chairman Bratton, Vice Chair Hudson, and members of the Education Committee, greetings and thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony on behalf of Senate Bill 594, the Ten Commandments in Schools Bill. John Adams once said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Morality and virtue are the foundation of our republic and necessary for a society to be free. My name is Keith Heuser. My background is made up of 17 years as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army with service in Desert Shield Storm and 27 years and retired as a rural hospital CEO, including chair of the North Dakota Hospital Association Board. I am here in support of Senate Bill 594, the Ten Commandments in Schools Bill, sponsored by Senator Jamie Berger. What I did not state in my opening intro is that I am a lifetime coach for Patriot Academy, an organization created to teach our adults and young adults what it means to be a patriot and how this great nation was founded, the Bible's impact on all of our nation's leaders, and the fact that this education is based on source documents, not on second or third-hand information. I have facilitated numerous classes on the Constitution and the influence that the Bible has had on our founders and the documents that they created. Over 12 of those classes were to middle and high school students. The key takeaway for me from these classes was, although very interested, our students know little, if anything, about our founding documents or how our nation was formed. This is through no fault of our educators, but it is no longer an important component of our school curricula. In 2014, Coach Joe Kennedy was terminated from his coaching job in Bremerton, Washington, for his personal habit of praying at the 50-yard line after each game. All were invited to pray with him, but none were forced. He often had members of the opposing team, as well as coaches and family members, pray with him. With the support of First Liberty Institute, a conservative law firm led by Kelly Shackelford in Plano, Texas, Coach Kennedy fought his case all the way to the Supreme Court, where they were victorious in 2022. This case overturned the Lemon Test created in 1971 and used to evaluate church versus state in the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment of our Constitution. Part of what the Supreme Court used to decide this case was going back to the original intent and purposes of our founding fathers in their writing of the Constitution. It was to follow that use of original intent that I opened with the powerful quote from John Adams. This new approach to determining constitutionality of acts of faith in our schools allows for a much broader view of the separation of faith and schools. Most importantly, it views the Ten Commandments as historical documents in the establishment of our nation and its founding documents. For this reason alone, the Ten Commandments are essential to understanding how our legal system was established, how our culture developed, and why the original pilgrims left their homes in England to better observe their faith in a new land. The Ten Commandments are etched into the Supreme Court building, displayed in our U.S. Congress building, and in or around most of the state capitals, including our own. Is it not equally or more important that our students be aware of these divinely given rules for good living and how they were integral in the establishment of this great nation? With the changed interpretation of the Supreme Court and the new method of evaluating what the Establishment Clause means regarding the display of these faith articles in our schools, I urge this committee to pass Senate Bill 594. It is a first step in teaching our students the importance that religious freedom had in creating the greatest nation on earth. I welcome your questions.
All right.
And by the way, if you would like, I do have the document you talked about in my phone. So if you are interested.
Okay, perfect. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Very much appreciated. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward. How many people are going to testify on? Okay, we have quite a few. Okay. We only have 30 minutes, so if we could please be as expedient as possible. Next, in favor? Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee who are no longer here.
Member of the committee?
Member. It's up to you. Okay. My name is Bev Allen. I'm the president of Liberty Link, Missouri. And just really wanted to come in support of this because I feel my mantra coming on. Because for years, when I learned about the history of our country, I realized that we became the freest, most benevolent, most prosperous nation in the world because our founding was based on God's principles. And God's principles work for the believer and the unbeliever in this life. You might want to check out his retirement plan because that's darn good. But for this life, his principles work for everyone who apply them. So, we have one suggestion to make, and this is a teaching moment here because many times when the Ten Commandments were interpreted, I should say, or revised, we wanted to change it to thou shalt not murder, because there's a big difference between murder and killing. And so we just we'll talk to you about that. And any questions from the members of the committee?
See none. Thank
you
for your testimony. Anyone else testify in support? All right. Testimony against, please come forward.
I'm Brian Kaler, president of Word and Way, a Christian nonprofit in Missouri since 1896. And as a Baptist minister and the father of a public school child, I urge you to vote against Senate Bill 594 because it violates the religious liberty rights of students, parents, and houses of worship. This bill mandates language for the displays of the Ten Commandments, but you will not find the wording as printed in the bill in any version of the Bible. Although the bill's text is largely drawn from the King James Version, it is highly edited. Large chunks of the sacred text have been deleted. In fact, only 37%, I counted the words, only 37% of the biblical passage would go on the school displays. So this bill cancels nearly 2/3 of the sacred text. For instance, after the statement, I am the Lord thy God, the bill demands a period. But the Bible does not put a period there, instead adding, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. That is a significant theological explanation that cannot be removed from the sacred text without editing its meaning. In one place, the bill even changes the wording, saying that we should not covet our neighbor's cattle. But the King James text instead says, nor his ox, nor his ass. I don't know if the bill sponsor is suggesting that it's now okay to covet donkeys, or just wanted to censor the word ass out of the Bible. Either way, we do not need to create a revised General Assembly version of the Bible. Additionally, the bill takes sides in a deeply theological debate over how to order the Ten Commandments, and that is a significant problem. The ordering of the 10 in the bill matches how most Protestant churches would list the commandments, but it differs from how Lutherans, Catholics, and Jews, among others, would list them. That means some students will be taught the Ten Commandments in their homes and their houses of worship, and then go to school and be told by the government that their parents and ministers got it wrong. The state should not pick winners and losers when it comes to religion. Ultimately, this bill would make many students feel like second-class citizens in their own classrooms just because they come from a religious tradition that lists the Ten Commandments differently, they adhere to a religious faith that does not even include the Ten Commandments, or they have no faith at all. School can be hard enough for kids trying to fit in and figure out who they are and who they want to be. We should not make it harder by codifying sectarian proclamations that create in and out groups based on religious beliefs. And the idea that hanging up the Ten Commandments will stop school shootings is absurd. The Ten Commandments are not like a magical amulet or a good luck charm. If they were, we would not have seen mass shootings at Christian schools and even at churches. There are many ways we could reduce school shootings, but this is not it. And as I noted a month ago when I was here before this committee on a different legislation, the Supreme Court did not outlaw prayer in public schools. As long as there are math tests, there will be prayer in public schools. This is about the government taking sides on religion. And if just hanging up the Ten Commandments made schools safe and made everyone moral and righteous, as we've already noted, there's a Ten Commandment monument just outside the Capitol on the grounds here, and that has not made the members inside this building follow all of those commandments. Roger Williams, co-founder of the First Baptist Church in America and founder of Rhode Island, the first colony with true religious liberty, said that civil magistrates, like yourselves, do not have the authority to govern what he called the first table of the Ten Commandments. That is, those that deal with people's relationships with God, like no graven images, Lord's name in vain, honoring the Sabbath. This bill attempts to codify that first table. In doing so, it overreaches the state's authority, using coercive state power to codify and teach sectarian faith. And as Roger Williams also said, forced worship stinks in God's nostrils. So I urge you to vote no on Senate Bill 594 because it stinks, as it violates the religious liberty rights of students, parents, and houses of worship. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? See none. Anyone else testify in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm W.B. Titchener, resident of Columbia, Boone County. I'm an attorney and a Baptist minister. I appear before the committee as a private citizen. I'm not representing any group or entity, and I appear to testify in opposition to the passage of Senate Bill 594. I have prepared written testimony, which I will turn in with my witness form, along with a position paper in opposition to this bill. I do not intend to go over this in detail. I do want to raise a few points for the committee's consideration. It's regrettable that a measure of this magnitude, and I understand senators have other commitments, having been an employee under the Speaker and the Majority Floor Leader and the Lieutenant Governor back in earlier days. First of all, the Senate Bill 594 is unconstitutional on its face, based on Stone v. Graham, and notwithstanding what you have previously heard, that is the law of the land. It hasn't been overturned. Notwithstanding the analysis that we're going to totally ignore Lemon, which the court has already said, this case is not going to be decided under Lemon. There are sound constitutional reasons otherwise to decide whether or not we are going to overturn Stone. Furthermore, the Louisiana Court of Appeals case likewise found such a bill as Senate Bill 594 unconstitutional. There is no compelling state interest for the enactment of this legislation, absolutely none. There's no governmental interest that's being protected here. This is the posting of a religious document in public school classrooms. It promotes subtly religious indoctrination, and it does so in such a manner as to essentially create Missouri's own set of 10 Commandments. As the previous speaker indicated, you will not find this copy of the 10 Commandments in any Christian translation of the Scripture, and you will not find it in the Tanakh, the Jewish Scriptures. It presents an encroachment by posting this government-crafted, legislative research-crafted, as I understand from the senator's explanation, of here's what the Ten Commandments are, totally ignoring all of the history concerning the Ten Commandments. I want to say a word about the impact as far as Missouri Constitution, because Missouri has separate provisions in its Constitution which this bill runs afoul of. Furthermore, when you look at the historical precedent argument that is asserted to be how this matter would be decided when it goes before the Supreme Court, what you have is you have no historical precedent for posting the Ten Commandments in public schools. You have no historical precedent, notwithstanding references to the Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, or the Constitution. You have no historical precedent relative to the Ten Commandments in any of those documents. Go to the charters for each of the individual original 13 colonies. There's nothing in any of those charters which declares that the Ten Commandments should be posted anywhere or that they are part of the law of the land. Go to the ordinance for the admission of Missouri to the Union. You will not find a single reference to the Ten Commandments or it being the basis for our law. The law of the United States of America is based upon the Enlightenment thought and English common law. It's not based upon a passage out of either Exodus or Deuteronomy, depending where you're reading your Ten Commandments. Let me say finally, Senate Bill 594, for those of us who read and study and revere the Scriptures, is a denigration, it's a demeaning, and it's a disrespecting of the Decalogue. The taking of what is sacred text to those of the Jewish faith and those of all the different varieties of Christian faith who have all their different interpretations, who have all of their different constructions, versions of the Ten Commandments, and substitute and put this as a plaque on a wall, does not hold Scripture in high regard. What it says to those of us of faith who do respect and who revere it, that's all that your faith really amounts to. Nothing more than a poster to be placed on a wall in a form that is totally repugnant to those who understand and appreciate Scripture. I thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so you're saying that this is in Missouri version, so when it states, I am the Lord thy God, I guess, who do you think it's referring to? The state?
No. It is referring to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Moses, the God of the children of Israel. That's who it is referring to.
Our Missouri State Constitution, in its opening preamble, the supreme ruler of the universe, who is that referring to?
The supreme ruler of the universe is depending upon who the reader is that's reading it.
So you're saying that the people who wrote the Constitution didn't understand that it was the same God, Isaac and Jacob?
I have no way of knowing those who authored that, what their personal view of the supreme ruler of the universe
come on now.
was.
Come on.
Well,
who else
I'm being
would it
as
have been
honest
to?
with you as I can, sir.
So well, I mean,
was it a Protestant view? Was it a Catholic view? Was it a Jewish view? Was it any other view? And irrespective of what it was, Senator, as has been pointed out, this is a very diverse state in which we live. We
So
have
let me
people.
read this. This is Delaware, and this was a requirement. This was at the founding of our nation. So in order to run for office, you had to state this: I do profess the faith in God the Father, and in Jesus Christ, his Holy Son, and in the Holy Ghost, one God, blessed evermore, and I do acknowledge the Holy Scriptures of the Old and New Testament to be given by divine inspiration. That was a requirement to hold office, that you had to give that oath and affirmation. So are you saying that they didn't know that it was the God of Isaac and Jacob, of the founders of this
Well,
nation?
sir, what you just read, Delaware, that meant no Jew could serve. That meant no atheist could serve.
Yeah, that's right.
No Muslim could
So
serve.
9 of the 13 original states and colonies had a requirement and a declaration to hold office. You had to be a professing Christian in order to hold office.
Sir,
Did you realize?
as much-
Did you realize that?
Yes, I realized.
So, but in your testimony, you literally gave testimony saying that we don't know who the God we reference is in our declaration, in our founding documents as a constitution.
Sir, I didn't
So
understand.
either you don't know, or you were uninformed, or you did know and you decide to kind of muddy the water.
Sir, I'm not trying to muddy the waters.
Well, it sure sounds like
apparent-
you're muddying the water, because you know who the Lord thy God in this is. To minimize, to say thou shalt not covet, as opposed to saying thou shalt not covet asses and cattle, to say that that's watering down of the word, saying covetousness in any term is against God's divine law. I guess is just it's a total muddying of the water, and it's a knowing and wanton desire to twist God's law. You don't agree with that?
I deny that entirely, sir. When you ask me what writers meant by the supreme ruler of the universe, Thomas Jefferson had a pretty different view of that
Hold on.
than the
I'm glad
average
you brought
everyday
this.
Baptist does.
So Thomas Jefferson was the author of what document? The Declaration of Independence, correct?
He was the primary drafter. There was a committee that passed on it.
So the final
He took
portion,
more pride in the religious
the final
liberty
portion of the
Virginia
Declaration
statute.
of Independence it was basically a prayer. And let me read the final. Appealing to the supreme judge of the world for rectitude of our intentions. So I'm going to stop there. Who is in the Bible the supreme judge of the world?
Senator, respectfully, this is a bill about posting an adulterated version of the Ten Commandments.
It's not.
It's not.
But that's your interpretation. But are you stating by your belief then we shouldn't be posting the Declaration of Independence? Because it references
That's not
God.
the question before us, Senator.
Well,
That's
I guess
not the question.
Who's
in
the
this
supreme
bill.
judge of the world in terms of the Bible?
The supreme judge of the world?
That would be Jesus Christ, wouldn't it?
Not in my faith.
Well, you said you're a Baptist minister, so in
Yes,
Revelation,
sir, I am, and one of the-
Revelation, who is the supreme judge of the world? It is Jesus Christ, right?
Sir, what you've just pointed out is the difference that we have within Christianity.
But not in Scripture, your interpretation, but in Scripture, it is Jesus Christ is the supreme ruler, correct, of the world,
Well,
and supreme judge.
Paul says that the devil is the god of this world. That's
The
Scripture too.
judge of
Sir,
the world. Okay.
Sir.
But I'm just stating that we know in the Christian faith that who our founders were referencing, which was the God of Isaac and Jacob, and we were a Christian nation in this founding. So to deviate from that is not an infringement on anyone's right. It's just declaring who we are as a nation. These are the standards in which we uphold, and it's God's standard in which we as a nation uphold. It's not an infringement. If you wish to look at those commandments as they do here at this Capitol, they look at the Scripture in our Capitol, they can take it for what it is, or they can take it for nothing at no face value. So this is not an infringement by displaying who we are and we're as a nation, and it's quite clear in all our founding documents and writings that's exactly who our founders meant. So thank you very much for your testimony.
Let me offer one other word. because the issue of expense was brought up on this. The bill mandates on January the 1st, school districts have to display it. The bill is internally inconsistent. I noticed the fiscal note said there's no cost to school districts. Well, there's going to be a cost to make an 11 by 14 plaque. There's going to be a cost for
But it's by private means, correct?
And what if the private means they'll come? I realize the senator thinks everybody's going to step up, but there's no requirement of spending public funds. But if they don't come in, the
Then it
school
won't be a
district's
display.
in violation of the statute.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else testify in opposition? Oh,
Just a quick comment, Mr. Chairman and Senator, thanks for your patience. I knew that this was probably going to be a long hearing today, much like I started off with the bill, and I knew that we would probably have some robust opposition, and I do. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I think that's what the hearing process is all about. That we do hear why somebody chooses to bring a bill forward, the support behind that bill, as well as the opposition. And I appreciate you bringing some concerns forward, sir, that I, quite frankly, hadn't thought about before. And we have had a history of bills over the years as I approach this, and I'm somebody who probably as the senator, I'm very proud and to raise my children in the same faith that I was raised in and passing that on. The difference I always see here is the forced religion in our public schools, and that has been my opposition to this piece of legislation and other pieces of legislation that we have seen. But again, I want to go back to the fact that this is a mandate on school districts, and again, it does say beginning January 1st. You are going to have to find a way to do this. And I can imagine that out of the 518 school districts in the state, a lot of charter schools, there would be some robust opposition for somebody actually having to go in there and hang this up. And I would much rather us use our time to talk about some really good bipartisan pieces of legislation that have come forward. What are we actually doing to help kids achieve higher learning attainment? And that's what I hope our focus continues to be. So I appreciate your dissent this morning, sir, and thanks for sharing your concerns with this committee.
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else testify in opposition? We do have 11 minutes left to get through all the testimony, so if we could keep it very brief, I appreciate it.
Morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Calvino Hammerman. I'm a current student at 10th grade at Ladue Horton Watkins High School in St. Louis County. We're a public school. Before attending public school, I actually attended private religious school. I'm a practicing Jew. I attended 6 years of Jewish elementary school. Religion's very important to me. At the school, we did daily Torah study, daily prayer, and I liked it. And we had 10 Commandments hanging on the wall, which made sense because private religious school, a religious school should have religious liturgy on the wall. However, now I'm at a public school where we have people from all religious backgrounds. The 10 Commandments are not just a set of morals. The first 5 are explicitly about the Abrahamic God. The first one being that there's one God, but my Hindu friends do not believe in this. But who is the government to tell them that that is wrong? And this version of the 10 Commandments does not align with the one I was taught. It's similar, but it has key differences. Why should the government tell me which 10 Commandments, what it should be? We have lots of posters hung up at our school, don't cyberbully. Kids do not pay attention to them. That's a real disrespectful way. Really, the 10 Commandments as a small poster in school, that's disrespectful. I know I've been in many hearings now here at the legislature, mainly education hearings. We often hear, let's go back to writing and reading and math. And in this situation, where does this fall into writing, reading, and math? This is religion in school. I strongly oppose this, and I would urge you to vote no. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, any questions? See none, thank you. Anyone else to testify in opposition?
Hi, I'm Michael Dunn, Reverend Dr. Michael Dunn. I'm ordained pastor of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ for 30 years. I've served congregations in Tennessee, Texas, and Missouri. I also come connected to Missouri Faith Voices as part of their executive board, which really brings together religious leaders of all faiths around our state. I'm also wearing the hat of the Boy Scouts in terms of volunteering. I volunteer with the Boy Scouts in terms of a counselor, which is why the pin I'm wearing here today. I help as a counselor in the Religious Emblems program that the Scouts have, which is a program to earn badges specific to the religious traditions. And my role in part of that is to help understand the relationship between God and country and the distinction of the church and state. So I appear to oppose this bill. At its very heart, this bill forces the Ten Commandments on people. And everyone knows when you force something down people's throats, they gag, and that's not good for anybody. Is there anything more exemplative of something contrary to the faith of a generous God, and in my case, the faith of Jesus, than forcing the Ten Commandments on people? And so if you're purposeful, and I will say if we are purposeful, because I feel like that we're all in this, about living out the spirit of the Ten Commandments, then we'll say no, it's not a smart bill. That's my testimony. I'll entertain any questions.
Where in the bill does it require that it be taught?
What be taught?
The bill.
But what are you asking? You said
you said that it's forcing it. Where is it? Yeah. Where is it forcing it to where students are taught this?
I'm assuming that if it becomes law, that you're forcing that onto schools if it becomes a law. Therefore, if it's not displayed, then what are the consequences for it not being displayed?
Well, I mean, we have a display of many busts of former senators and stuff, but we're not, I mean, you walk by and you can take the time of your own doing to look and review and see what's, you know, who the former senators were, but nobody's forcing anyone to read or take part. This bill does none of that. This doesn't make you or force any student to take part in anything.
We would disagree on that.
Where is it in the bill that it is forcing them to learn it?
The bill itself is forcing Ten Commandments to be placed in classrooms.
Okay. No, it's actually just displayed at the school, not in the classrooms. Correct? Is it in every? In classrooms. But either way, it's displayed.
Either way.
It's displayed. It's not forced.
I mean, really, either way, whether it's the school or the classrooms, it's the same difference.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else testify against?
Hello, committee members. My name is Sage Coram. I'm here on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union of Missouri. I do have robust comments that I will leave behind, including numerous case sites, including some discussion of Kennedy versus Bremerton and the Lemon test that we already heard mentioned. But in the interest of time, I really want to say that, simply put, the proposal to post the Ten Commandments in public schools classrooms, and in the bill it does say in every classroom, blatantly violates both the U.S. and the Missouri constitutions. Nearly 50 years ago in Stone versus Graham, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned a Kentucky law mandating the display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom. The court explained that the displays would unconstitutionally, quote, induce the school children to read, meditate upon, perhaps to venerate and obey the commandments. And since Stone in 1980, no federal court has upheld the display of the Ten Commandments by public schools officials, regardless of the context. And in the comments I leave behind, that context will be further outlined. And then recently, just a few months ago in November 2024, a federal district court enjoined a Louisiana statute that is nearly identical to this proposed 594. And in that, the court held that the law violated both the establishment and the free exercise clauses of the First Amendment. The decision by that court also recognized that school-imposed displays of the Ten Commandments would impermissibly usurp the constitutional right of parents to decide what religious doctrine, if any, is instilled in their children, and that such displays would result in the unconstitutional religious coercion of students. The court explained that imposing scripture on students who are legally required to attend schools, they comprise a captive audience for school-sponsored religious messages, and that the presentation could potentially pressure them to adopt and follow the state's preferred religious doctrine. I have additional comments, but really beyond the grave constitutional...
We have 3 minutes left.
Then I will leave for other folks to present their opposition as well. But this bill is unconstitutional. It's also unnecessary given the religious protections we also have through our own state constitution.
Okay, so real quick, so with creation, would you believe that's in a religious realm of creation and origin?
I think in terms of
in terms of religious teaching, that each religion probably has different origins and creation or whatnot associated with it. Yes or no?
I'm certainly not a theologist. I do understand that there are many different religions, and different religions have different origination stories or faith practices. Yes.
Evolutionary theory is mandated in every school. So is that a religion that's being forced upon students?
Right now, we're talking about...
But it goes against certain teachings of people's faith and belief and origin. So is evolutionary theory therein unconstitutional?
What we're talking about in the case here, and what we've heard from other folks that have already presented testimony, is that this bill is seeking to establish the display...
Establish a religion, establish forced teaching is what we've heard in testimony.
Right, and then in the First Amendment that the similar bill was seen to show was in violation of this First Amendment, we cannot establish a religion and we cannot preference one religion over another. And then we also have the free exercise clause. And
so that was my question, is evolutionary theory being taught as the only origin of life? Is that establishment of a religion?
I'm not here to talk about in terms of that curriculum. I'm here to talk about this.
Okay. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions? Well, I do apologize. If you have testimony for this, we're at the end of this committee hearing. No, we don't have 30 seconds. We end at 10. Please sit down. You can, if you've come, you can submit written testimony, and it will be submitted through the people of this hearing. I apologize, but we're constrained by time. Thank you. If I can make a motion to adjourn, can I get a second? Second, we are adjourned.
You can leave that lay right here. No, I wanted you to have a personal comment. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, witness non-appearance for K2 chairman.